Welcome to Manja. I'm Suze and I'm your host. And today we're talking about a dessert. And while we're talking desserts, I bet you don't know that people have certain personality tastes when it comes to food. This is psychologically proven. There's white papers all over the place about this. I was investigating this and teaching this probably 40 years ago when I was a kid growing up, and it was like, my brother wants chocolate, he wanted chocolate cake. And I'm going, okay, I want butterscotch. And my mom's like, I'm gonna only make one. And we would fight it out to see who won. Well, I was older, so I could beat the crap out of him, so I won. But food has personalities. People have personalities. So over the years, I've done more research on it, and this is verifiable fact that people have personalities that match their taste or their palate. For example, maple. I made a homemade maple pecan cake. Now this is interesting. I even made the toffee. Okay.
Maple.
Okay, now the husband is intruding on the show.
Smell.
He'll pay for this.
Maple.
Okay, so this is my husband, John Hankins.
Hi.
And we are talking maple. What do you know about maple? Do you know anything about maple?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell me what you know.
My cousins have a sugar house just below Stowe Mountain, and this is it. And you can order it by mail and all that. They do it every spring. They tap from 4 forests. Now, here's the funny part. When I brought Suze back to Vermont, got that little Canuck Canadian French accent, Vermont. And Suze, I told Suze that my cousin Stephen and Robin had a maple syrup plantation.
I'm expecting Doric or Corinthian columns looking like Tara from Gone with the Wind, right? So I'm all jazzed. I'm going, wow, a maple plantation. I've never been to a maple plantation.
Yes, so we drive up from the opposite side of the mountain up to the top of Stowe Mountain. This was not in winter. And we're coming down, and then we turn off to the right, and Suze thought what? That we were stopping for.
We pulled up. Yeah, we were going to go pee. Right, it was a rest stop. So we pulled up to this shack on the road, and I'm going, oh, good. Well, we might as well go to the restroom. I go. Okay. So after we go here, then we're going to go to the plantation, right? And John says, no, this is the plantation. And I'm going, it's not a plantation. It's a dump. It's a shack. And he sat there and it was not Tara. Let's face it. So we walk in the front door, and I was, frankly, very surprised. There was this long bar, hand-hewn hard rock maple bar that was hand-carved, and it must have been, about 12, 15 feet long? It was pretty big.
Oh, maybe even more. Oh, yeah, more than that. It was 20, 25 feet.
It was gorgeous. So we're sitting there, and the cousin comes up and introduces himself, Stephen. And then he sits there and he goes, well, you want to try our maple syrup. Now, my orientation to maple syrup as a child was what? Log cabin, Aunt Jemima. I mean, I always, or my mother, who was from the Depression, bought that imitation maple flavoring, mixed it with sugar and water, and tried to pass it off as maple syrup. Well, us kids, I mean, when you're 8 years old, your palate's not that sophisticated. So then we launched into Log Cabin, and even Mrs. Butterworth's, if we were really good, we got fat little lady in the jar.
Never had it.
So Stephen lines up all these shot glasses,
right,
and he tells me we're going to do a maple tasting. And I'm like, huh? Okay, so he must have had like 8 different shot glasses. And I go, oh, wow, they're all different colors. And I said, what's with the colors? And he goes, with different grades of syrup. Mm-hmm. I had no idea what was a grade of syrup. So he poured them all out. This one is on the back. I noticed that today.
Well, it says Vermont Fancy.
Fancy is a type of one of theirs. Now it goes from the stuff that I had as a child, which is the dark stuff, the stuff you buy in the grocery store, to a very, very pale, almost yellow, white, amber color. Mm-hmm. and it was, he says, you start off with the best stuff and work your way down to the bottom, which was the stuff I've always had. So the light amber stuff was like, oh my God, it was floral. It had notes of flowers, fresh herbs in it. I mean, this is the way I talk when I teach classes. I talk in jargon like this, food jargon, chemistry stuff. And there goes our dog. He even loves it. But anyway, so when he went to the maple syrup plantation, we tried them all, and the last one was a very dark brown amber color, but it was dark brown, and it was almost bitter. And that was the cheapest stuff. So you go from the really expensive stuff down to the cheapest stuff. And frankly, when I was a kid, I didn't know the difference, like I said. But after tasting the really good stuff, the premium stuff, I can't go back. So now, I was so enthralled with this. Now we get it sent to us. Can you get it mailed to you?
Absolutely.
What's the name of the company?
Yes, you can. It's called, I brought this down, it's called Stowe Maple Products. And there is a picture of Sue's at what she's calling the shack. It's a little bit more than the shack.
It's still
But
a
in any
shack.
case,
It's not Terra.
By the way, there is a plantation, but what they do is Stephen and Robin, his wife, they've been making maple syrup since 1987, and they tap from 4 different forests in and around Vermont. And so and they truck it back to boil on a 150-year-old evaporator in our sugar house. And so now I remember going up there as a kid, and for those who do not know about such things, during the spring there was always a sugar on snow get together throughout the whole community. And basically what it was is during the winter you get this beautiful snow, you bring it down and you keep it in a cold thing, and then in the spring as you're tapping the maple syrup and boiling it, it's coming out nice and fresh and beautiful, and you'd have this hot maple syrup and you'd go around with a plate of snow, and then they put the maple syrup on the snow, and it was the
dessert?
best thing. It's called sugar on snow.
Never heard of that, never tried it, but I guess we could try it when we fly again.
Well, next time it snows.
Yeah, but if you've ever had the real deal, you know what I'm talking about. And this is probably the best I've ever had.
StoweMaple.com.
Okay.
You know, everybody knows about the snow.
This is not a promotion, by the way. We get nothing for this.
Yeah.
Other than that we now have access to probably the best maple syrup you could ever have.
That's right. And by the way, they will not send it to you in the heat of the summer because they do not want it to have too much heat in the airplanes and all that. But starting in the fall or any of the cool...
Did you know it's volatile?
You mean...
That's why
what?
they don't put it on airplanes when it's unless it's a pressurized cabin or in the hold or whatever they call that thing.
This is new information.
This is actually something when I was researching it to teach a class I found out. The reason for it is because if maple syrup gets too hot, like molasses, the great molasses flood in Boston.
Boston,
in 1918 or whatever it was, the temperature changed within 60 degrees in one day, and these large, big vats of wooden vats, like maybe a wine cask, that had the cooperage around it, which was metal. The temperature changed so dramatically, they exploded and actually killed people. And it was 7 feet deep on the streets of Boston. Same thing with maple syrup. It's volatile. And so the sugar in the chemical reaction, it would be volatile if they put it on a plane, and they don't want to ruin the integrity of the maple syrup, so they don't want to sell it.
No.
Now, when I was now I will drink this in a shot glass straight. I mean, nobody's in the kitchen when I'm here, right? John's not going to be here, so it's going to be me. And I will drink a shot glass of this because it's that good. Real maple syrup is fabulous. So I made this maple syrup cake. And this is, of course, it's got lots of butter, and it's the usual ingredients, flour, sugar. But here's a trick that I do that even John doesn't know about. Here's my trick. If you can see, these are all candied pecans that I made using the maple syrup as well, and a maple glaze on the outside. Now in the middle, there's like a volcanic well. There's a reason for this. Because when you go to cut this up, usually by this time the dinner party is on the wane, everybody's bagged, nobody's paying attention to what you're doing in the kitchen. I go to cut the slices, and in this well, I've got a spoon, and I figure, hey, I made it, I get to do anything I want. I get to spoon all of this really luscious icing, maple icing in the middle, and I sit there and eat it by myself. That's your treat for for making all that wonderful food for everybody else.
See.
Now he knows, now he's going to be in the kitchen. Only if he does the dishes he can do this. And he does dishes well, I'll give him that. Anyway, getting back to food personalities, how we started with this.
Okay.
Food personalities.
I'll leave you to it.
Okay, you may take this away. Goodbye.
Oh, I will.
I'm
Depend
sure,
on it.
I'm sure he will take a spoon to it, and he's going. If he eats it, I swear to God, you're going to hear about it on the next show. Back to food personalities. Food personalities. People, you're the introverts or extroverts. We all know the difference between the two, and then sometimes somebody could be a blend of both. But when I did all this research many years ago, for General Foods, by the way, because when we were doing testing of essences and developing new flavors and new products for General Foods, we use this information in designing for populations. So if you go to, say, like somewhere in Mexico, they have distinct food preferences that are totally different from somewhere in, say, the northeast part, Maine, or Vermont, or maybe, Massachusetts. The difference in the personalities is the population and ethnic culture. So, for example, chocolate, dark chocolate. People that like dark chocolate have exaggerated big personalities. Well, guess what I like, right? Dark chocolate. And that also has a degree of percentages of chocolate, which we'll get into at a later date. But for this show, dark chocolate is for exaggerated, exuberant personalities, very outgoing personalities. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got the people that like vanilla. They're generally introverts. They're not real gregarious, and there's a place for these people, but not in chocolate world. So they usually like vanilla, and maybe strawberry, and maybe the lesser of the more pronounced flavors. We design products just for them. Then there's the middle. There's not a lot of the middle. Now the middle would be lemon. It would be peanut butter. Would be something that they could bridge the gap of both that doesn't really belong in either camp. So when we were designing new products for this company, for General Foods, we had to take that in consideration about their culture we were designing it for, the population, and where the people lived that we were selling the products to. It's really interesting how people really fall in different camps as far as tastes go. And this next segment is going to be all about the different tastes and why you would like that. I'll be right back.